so with the ball, we're going to start out rolling our feet. All right, sorry. So with the ball, we're going to start out rolling our feet. You can stand next to the wall here for a little bit of support, and I'm going to angle my screen down so you can see exactly what I'm doing here with my feet. It cuts off my head, but that's all right. All right, so I'm going to focus on the feet. Remember, if our palm was our foot, we're going to focus on the space between the heel and the ball. So think of that palm of your hand. Imagine the palm of your foot and explore it. Inside, middle, outside. All right. What we're going to do is spend a couple of minutes on each foot, and then we'll work our way up the body. Today we will do some work in the upper body. So middle, that arch space. So if this was your foot, right? We're working on that arch space way out here on that outer edge, out along that pinky toe side, back and forth. Good, right up the middle. Big inhales and exhales. Good, so as you roll back and forth, pay attention to where there's tight spots. If you have any back by the heel, up by the ball, outside, inside on that arch. And those are the spaces, those tight spaces are what I want you to target when we go into our next minute here. Because for the next minute, what we're going to do is we're going to take that ball and do what I call polka dot. You're going to put it in a spot, rock onto the ball, maybe wiggle the toes a little bit, and then rock off. And then you're going to find a new spot. Rock onto the ball, wiggle the toes a little bit, rock off. All right? So what we're doing here is a pin and stretch. As you rock on, we're pinning that trigger point. And as we move the toes, we're doing the stretch. All right? So again, palm of the foot. If you can think of the palm of your hand, think of the palm of your foot. That's where we're keeping the ball. Finding these little spots to pin and stretch. All right? So as you move your toes, don't just wiggle them. Try to really lift them and spread them out as wide apart from each other as you can get them to go. Good. And rock on the ball, move the toes, rock off. Rock on the ball, move the toes, rock off. Rock on, move, rock off, and find a couple more spots here before we switch sides. Good. Okay, so before we go around on the other leg, shake that leg out. Okay, give it a good shake. Shake out both legs. See how they feel. Not just the foot, ankle, calf, but all the way up into here. Try a little one leg balance on the side you haven't rolled and compare that to one leg balance on the side you have rolled. Which side feels more awake, alert, ready to react to things, right? All we did was roll the feet, right? We didn't do anything else. All right, let's switch sides. So switch feet. And same thing, finding the ball, or the palm of your hand, imagine the palm of your hand on the bottom of your foot. So the palm of your foot rolling back and forth. And quietly, maybe even closing your eyes and listening. Not even listening, just dialing into that foot. Where are there tight spots? If you feel one, spend a little extra time. Maybe go a little bit quick, back and forth. You spend some time, you don't feel anything on that foot, but you had a ton of trigger spots on the other foot. Go back to the other side. Give your body what it needs. Right? Rolling. Explore all zones on this other foot. Okay? Just about 15 more seconds, and then we're going to polka dot on this side. Okay? So, where were those trigger spots? On this foot, I have one way out on the outside, so that's what I'm going to target that one first. I'm going to rock on, wiggle the toes, rock off. I'm going to find a spot right next to that. rock on, wiggle the toes, rock off, right? And keep going. Remember, it's more than a wiggle. It's almost a, you took your hand and really try to spread your fingers apart from each other as much as you can. Do that same thing with your toes and your foot. And you know what? If you do it with your hands, it helps your foot, right? The brain sees the hand doing it. It'll help to reproduce that in your foot. Rock on, rock off. And remember, you control the pressure. So if it's too much, don't rock up, put so much weight on, right? It's a softer rock on, rock off. Good, let's do 3 more spots on this foot. Don't forget the breath. And do 1 more spot. Good, and shake that side out. And let's go back to that one leg stance. Do a little bit, spend a little time on both sides. What's going on? All right, now I feel like both sides are awake and ready to roll. Again, all we did was the bottom of your feet, right? So many receptors, muscles, joints that are affected by our feet all the way up our entire body. All right, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna move up the chain. And today we're gonna spend a little time, we're gonna stop, before we get into the hips, we're gonna spend a little time right here on the quad, okay? So if you imagine a line from your hip joint straight down to your knee, that's your IT band. That's a real thick fibrous tissue. We're not gonna change that, so we don't wanna roll that. And remember, it also is very painful, so that's another reason we're not gonna roll it. But what we wanna do is roll right on top of it, okay? Here, that's called our vastus lateralis, okay? The outer part of our quad. So we're gonna put the ball in there. Notice my knee is bent a little bit, so I'm just gonna kind of go forward and back. And that ball's not traveling very far, it's just kind of going right here to here. And then I can move up to a new spot and go here to here. So again, I'm on the top of my IT band. I'm not right in the middle. I'm on top of it, okay? So rolling, targeting that lateral side of your quad, okay? So like our glute med that tends to overwork and do work that the glute max should do, this lateral quad tends to overwork as well, okay? So that lateral quad tends to do work that the other parts of the quad should be doing. And that's what we're targeting right here. So if you find a tight spot, feel free to press and hold. I have one right here. I'm gonna press and hold, breathe. And then if you want, you can add a little bit of knee flexion here. Because what our quad does is move against that IT band. They actually move in opposite directions here. So we want to add a little bit of movement and see if we can get that trigger point to release and allow that muscle to really go that full range of motion, okay? So you can switch to the other side whenever you want, okay? So again, I just rolled right here, doing the same thing on the other side. And again, you're kind of going from knee to hip, but it's a small back and forth motion. And you're going to stay higher up. So we're not going to go way down by the knee. I would stay from a third of the way up to the hip, okay? Down by the knee is basically all IT. There's not a lot of muscle tissue down there, and it's going to be a lot more tender. So think even mid-thigh up into the hip, into that space to target this lateralis, okay? So next up, we'll spend a little bit longer here. Next up, we're going to go into the glute. Okay, and again, now here I have a tight spot. Now I can add some movement here, and if your IT is really tight, you might feel a ropey sensation kind of clunking across that ball, okay? What happens is that vastus lateralis can get really kind of matted down or tied into that IT band, and then they can't move the way they can. I spent a lot, Stephanie has spent a lot of time on my IT bands trying to keep that vastus lateralis from being like just completely locked down onto my IT band. So massage is great for that. This is just kind of a little self-tool maintenance kind of thing, but if you're feeling a lot of tightness, a lot of tension in there, I do recommend getting some soft tissue work. All right, so next up, glute max, right? Lower glute muscle, put it there in the wall, going out, little side to side, okay, little horizontal pattern. But remember the fibers here actually run in a diagonal pattern. So you can run that way. And we're going from that outside hip in to the tailbone, back and forth, okay? And again, you can change the ball position, go a little bit lower, go a little bit higher, but right now stay in that glute max. We're gonna spend time specifically in that glute med, but alternate, go ahead and alternate between the two sides. Okay, so we're gonna spend another minute here in glute max, so just alternate between the two sides, however feels best to you. And remember, in that glute max, way deep in there, is your ball and socket joint, right? So if here's your ball and socket joint, can you get that ball to kind of explore around the joint? There's a lot of muscles that crisscross in that space, a lot of soft tissue. We don't want to roll the joint itself, but can you roll around? Back and forth. Good. All right, so next up, glute med. So remember, we want to find our bony landmark, which is our top of our pelvis, right? You can feel that with your fingers. I'm going to put the ball right beneath the rim. And what we're going to do is go from the tailbone. I'm not going to roll on the tailbone, so I'm going to feel where the bony part of my tailbone is. So I'm going to go from here out to, this is my ball and socket joint down here. So I can roll all the way out to the front here, front of the pelvis. Okay, so we're going to find that whole space. That is our glute med, okay? And you can start with the ball. I start with the ball right below the rim of the pelvis, but obviously you can move it down just a little bit. And again, you can go horizontal, you can go do a little up, down, whatever feels good here. And just again, alternating from one side to the other, spending time where your body needs you to spend extra time, right? I don't know where that is. Nobody else knows where that is, just you do. So here's the time to pay attention to it and give your body what it needs. And don't forget the breath. Big inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale and exhale. Good. All right, so now we're going to spend a little time just on this outside space. So think of the rim of your pelvis down to the hip joint and maybe a little bit just behind that, okay? The reason we're going to target that is we're going to go right into a couple stretches here, okay? So I'm going to go around and I'm going to move the ball up. And then I'm looking for tight spots. I found one right here. So what I'm going to do is pin it. So I'm pressing into that space, taking my inside arm up, 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 and then I'm going to reach away from the wall. Big inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Good. So I'm going to take it to the other side. Same thing. All right, I'm going to find that area around the ball and socket, move it around. As soon as I find a tight spot, and I have one right here, I'm going to pin it, hold it, take that inside arm up, and reach away. 3 breaths. Good. Okay, and so we're on the wall. We did a little bit of work in the vastus lateralis. We're gonna stretch that quad, okay? So using your wall for a balance tool, pull the heel into the butt, standing as tall as you can. And what we're doing is stretching all the way through that quad, hopefully getting a little bit of that outer edge as well. So we don't want that knee to be out here, right? We want it tucked in there, nice and tight. Inhales and exhales. Good. Now I'm holding the leg that is opposite from the wall, right? So now I'm going to take that leg behind. Now I'm going to crisscross, right? So same leg, I just stretched this quad. Now I'm going to target this hip. So legs squeeze together. Pretend you have something in there, you're giving it a little squeeze, and you're going to stick that hip out, away from the wall. You can put both hands on top of your head and just kind of lean into that space. So my hip is going out. I can also tuck my tailbone and press that hip a little bit forward, and now I'm going to feel it a little bit here in the front of that hip space as well. So let's take 3 breaths. Find a spot that feels good. Insides of the legs squeeze together. Let's do 2 more breaths. Good. So we're going to switch, right? So my other leg, the leg opposite from the wall, I'm going to find that quad stretch. Again, knee tucked in tight, standing tall. You can work on your balance on your standing leg. All right, now that leg's going to go behind. I'm moving my feet away from the wall as far as I need. That's going to go behind. I'm going to squeeze my inner thighs together. Hips going to go out. Taking my arms over the top. Big inhales and exhales. Remember, you can kind of jut that hip just a little bit forward. That might give you a little bit extra stretch in the front of that hip. Good. And we're going to just do about 30 more seconds here. Whatever side feels good. Spend a little time, whether it's arms over the head or just focusing on the space. And just a little more time here in that hip. Good. All right. So next up, we're gonna adjust this camera. All right. So now we're gonna work our way up the spine a little bit. So next bony landmark is our shoulder blade, right? So you can feel the bottom of it there. We're gonna put the ball right underneath the shoulder blade, pin it against the wall, and imagine the shoulder blade is a right angle, which it's not, but we're gonna just kind of trace along that bottom horizontal plane of the shoulder blade. Okay, so we're going to go from out here in towards the spine, but not onto the spine, and back up. Okay, so we're going to do the horizontal of an imaginary L that is your shoulder blade. Okay, now between your spine and your shoulder blade, right? Between your spine and shoulder blade. So if this is your spine, this is your shoulder blade, you're going to get the ball right into that space, right in between those 2 bony landmarks. Okay? And you can just drop down into a squat, stand back up, and letting that ball just kind of nuzzle right up against the spine, right? The vertical portion of that shoulder blade. Let it nuzzle in there. Inhales and exhales. Good. Switch to the other side whenever you're ready. So remember, you want to explore that horizontal bottom portion of the shoulder blade first, and then you can move it around a little bit and nuzzle it between the spine and that vertical edge of the shoulder blade. Again, how much pressure you put in these spaces, totally your call, right? Down and up. Not rolling onto the spine itself, not rolling onto the shoulder blade itself. Just think about that ball kind of right next to the edges. Maybe you trace that little L pattern. If you find a tight spot, you can always add movement, right? So the easiest joint to add movement in here is that shoulder. You can move it up, over. Good, just about 20 more seconds here. And then we'll move up to the shoulder and a little bit in the neck today. Good. All right, so next up, right here, right on the side, deltoid. Put it right there between your shoulder and the wall, and then it's just little tiny back and forth or up and down. We're targeting just that outer deltoid muscle. Maybe even move your shoulder just in a little, right, little rotation, and letting that ball massage that outer shoulder here. Right? If you find a tight spot, you can press and hold. You can have movement. Easiest joint to move from here would be the elbow, right? Maybe even rotating from the shoulder. Okay, rotating that shoulder open. Rotating the whole arm, I'm sorry. All right, and then just switching between the two sides. A little back and forth, a little up, down. Good. Okay, so the next one does look a little funny. We're going to do this in front of the shoulder. We did the side. What we want to target here is your pec minor. So your pec is your big chest muscle here, right? If you kind of took your hand and started in the center of your chest and ran up on a diagonal to your shoulder, that's your pec major, right? But then from your pec major, there's a little pec minor that connects your chest to your shoulders. And that tends to get really tight. And when it does, it pulls your shoulder forward, right? And we know once those shoulders come forward, the head comes forward, then it starts a cascade of events affecting our body. So we want to be able to pull the shoulder back, but we can't pull the shoulder back if that pec minor is just constantly pulling us forward. So we're going to target, find the bony shoulder, and we're going to put the ball right next to it. Okay, so right in here. Then you have to come to the wall and look like you're kissing the wall a little bit, but we want to kind of pin the ball in that space and then just explore moving it around, up, down, side, side. So you gotta get real up and close and personal with your wall here. But explore that space. And once you lean into it, you'll feel it, right? That ball can go in to the pec major, which probably is also tight if you have shoulders that tend to roll forward, which most of us do, right? But see if you can kind of get it into that little groove at the front of the shoulder and target the pec minor. All right, so last one we're going to target now is the trap. Okay, so if, again, looking for a bony landmark, I'm going to find my rear collar blade section here, right? Feel it with my fingers. So imagine that's a shelf, and then above that you can feel your trap, right? That big ropey muscle. So imagine putting the ball on top of your shelf, and then again finding position where you can kind of lean into the ball or into the wall, and that ball's just nuzzling right up against that shelf as you go from shoulder in towards your neck, right? So see, I'm just kind of going in a horizontal pattern. That ball's just nuzzled up on my shelf. Not pushing super hard, but that ball's just moving. So if this is my shoulder blade, the ball is going just like this. Right? Getting that nice movement. And what we're doing is kind of just like everything else, we're trying to get some fluid, some blood flow into these tissues, especially if you have a lot of adhesions and tightness in there. Right? Another reason to drink a lot of water every day. Right? And then just switch sides whenever you're ready, letting that ball just sit on that shelf and just kind of go in and out horizontally. If you find a tight spot, oof, I've got one here on my right. Okay, so I'm going to hold it. I'm going to breathe. And then I can add just a little bit of movement. So I'm just going to take my left ear a little bit towards my left shoulder. As I drop my right shoulder down, now I'm doing that pin and stretch, right? So I've got that tight spot of that trigger point pin. Now I'm going to add a little movement to get the stretch. Good. Just going to spend a little more time anywhere here. So traps, shoulders, chest. If you want to go back to the shoulder blade, you can do that here. Just going to spend a little less than a minute. Then we'll finish up with the rolling and get down and stretch these spaces. All right, so we're going to stay on the wall. You can put the ball down. Let's do some big shoulder rolls. Maybe take your hands as they hang down heavy. Just rotate your palms open and then back, squeezing the shoulder blades, lifting the chest. Take a big inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. And do some more rolls. So we're going to stay here on the wall just for one more thing, and it's a stretch. I want you to step away from your wall a little bit. Bring your feet hip distance apart, maybe a little bit wider. My feet here, right? And then I'm going to put my hands on the wall, and you can adjust your feet so you're at a comfortable angle. So I have my hands right on the wall, and I'm going to push my hands into the wall. I'm going to lengthen my tailbone back, but I'm also going to push my feet into the floor, and I'm going to lift my tailbone up to the ceiling. So big inhales and exhale here. So think opposition. As you press into the wall, you're also pressing down into the floor. Good. Bend the knees, roll up, shake out the leg. Now we're going to add an option here. If it doesn't feel right to you, you can drop it, obviously. It's going to add a little bit of a rotation. Okay, so feet down, hands forward. I'm going to let my left hand go. I'm going to reach it across, grab the outside of that thigh. And as I reach my tailbone back and my hand forward, I'm just going to look up under that elbow. So now I'm getting a nice stretch along the side as well as in that hamstring and hip. 3 breaths here. And then coming back up, shaking out the legs. Same thing on the other side. Hands into the wall. Tailbone back. I'm going to drop my right arm. Bring it across. Grab the outside of that thigh. Pull myself around. But I'm still pushing into the wall. Still pushing into the floor. Good. And then I'm going to come all the way down to the floor. Hands to the floor. So in a standing straddle here. Toes pointed forward. You need to bring hands to the floor. You can bring hands to the shin or the knees, Or you can come forward completely, let the elbows rest in your hands, maybe add a little rock side to side. But focus on your breath here. Good. And then when you're ready, bend the knees, roll up, take a little time. Okay, and we're going to work our way down to the floor. So when you come down on the floor, go ahead and bring your pillow if you have it with you. We're going to start out with a modified pigeon, and if it helps you, you might try it. If it helps you to sit on the pillow as you do this, some people just allows you to get into the stretch a little bit better. So with our modified pigeon, we're going to have a 90-degree bend in the front knee, 90-degree bend in that back knee, and again, you can sit up on your pillow here as well. Okay, so with that, I am a 90-90 sit. I'm just going to come straight forward over that front shin. Okay, and you can also use your pillow or another pillow here in the front, so you don't have to come down quite so far. And what you want to focus on is a stretch inside this front hip, right? In that front hip space. Pull the toes to the shin. And get a little active stretch here. Good. We're going to come up. Now we're going to take that back leg, bring it in front, bring it in as close to your body as you can, still keeping your hips on the floor. We don't want to rock completely off like this. So we want to bring that knee in towards your chest, wrap it up, sit up tall. So we want to go for length first. And then once we have that length, you can turn and look over the same shoulder of that knee you're hugging, just a little bit. So getting that nice stretch here through that hip, right, outer quad, maybe a little bit here in that side body. Okay, so now that leg that you're hugging is going to be your front leg. The other one's going to go back to be your back leg. Still 90 degrees, right, 90-90. Position yourself. Come forward using your pillow in any location that feels best to you. Pull the toes to the shin. And settle into that stretch in that inside of the front hip. Good. And then coming up, bringing that back leg. Same thing, bringing it across. Hugging that knee in as much as you can, going for length, so sitting tall here. And then if you have it, you can turn and look, but the priority is the length of your spine. So pull that knee in, sit up tall. Rotation only comes after length here. Getting that stretch out here in that hip. All right, and I'm down just a couple minutes, so I want to finish with you in a comfortable position, focusing on your breath. Now you can use your pillow here if it feels good to you to put it under your head. What we're going to do is legs up the wall. I'm going to move back here so you can see. Okay, so if you want to use your pillow under your head, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to start off with my legs or hips and knees at 90 degrees. Okay, knees at 90, hips at 90, arms out to the side. And all I'm going to do is take a big inhale and exhale. And as I exhale, I'm going to push into the wall and just slowly peel my back up off the mat. So I'm not coming into a full bridge. It's just a little hip lift. So if I stuck my fingers underneath my hips, I've got maybe 3 inches of lift here as I push my feet into the wall. Now I'm going to lengthen my tailbone as I come back down. Okay, so inhale, exhale, push in the wall, round up, lengthen through the spine as you come down, and release. And just do a few more of those. So what we're focusing on here is activation, but we're getting a little bit of a traction, a little lengthening of that lumbar space. And what you can do to add to it is as you come up, hold, you can actually kind of press on those hip creases to get a little bit more length out of that low back. And just do a couple more reps here, whatever feels good. Good. All right, so you can stay here, 90-degree bend in both, feet up on the wall. You can extend their legs off the wall. You can move your hips closer to the wall, right? So you can get the legs up in more of a vertical orientation here, whatever feels good. What I want you to do is find a comfortable position. You want to feel the weight of your legs just sinking down to the floor, let gravity work. Arms out to the side, completely relaxed. We're going to focus on the breath. Remember, our breath starts in the belly with an inhale, letting the belly rise. Taking that inhale through the diaphragm, the space between the belly and the rib cage. Then continue that breath into the lungs, expanding the lungs in all directions, expanding that rib cage. And then we reverse it, starting from the top, pressing down, exhaling. Finish with the belly button pulled in and a pelvic floor pulled up. Okay, so I'll walk you through 2 breaths. I can encourage you to do 3 or 4 or more on your own and just enjoy this space. Close your eyes and breathe. So big inhale, belly. Continue to inhale into the diaphragm, lungs, and rib cage. On the exhale, reverse. Lungs, diaphragm, belly. Finishing with a little contraction of that pelvic floor, pulling it up towards your center. Before inhale and start again. And I, again, encourage you to stay here for some more breaths. Just closing your eyes. Imagine that breath coming in, filling the belly, filling the diaphragm, into the lungs. Give it that full breath. And then the exhale, saying it all the way. And I'm going to sign off. I wish you all a wonderful rest of this day and the remainder of your week. And I'll see you again next week. Take care.